Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunj Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunj Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Giribara Dari Jaya Giribara Dari. Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Panachari Jamuna Tira Panachari Jaya Radhama Rama Jaya Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya, Jaya, Prabhupada, 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 Jaya, Jaya, Prabhupada. Jai Ho Vishnupad Paramahansa Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Anant Koti Vaishnavind Ki Jai Ho Vishnupad Paramahansa Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्री वासुदेव गौर भक्तवृंद की श्री श्री राधा गोलोकनंद की श्री गिरिराज की श्री वृंदावन धाम की मथुरा धाम की जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की गंगा मई की जमुना मई की तुलसी देवी की भक्ति देवी की सामवेद भक्तवृंद की हरि नाम संकीर्तन की गौर प्रेमानंदी. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jai. Krishna, 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 Gopal, Krishna, 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are continuing our study of Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 44th chapter. And today we'll read from verse 6 and I'll also include verse 7. So I'll just read verse 6 and then we can read verse 7 together. Tad bala balavat yuddham sameta sarvayoshita uchu parasparam rajan sanu kampa varu tasha. Translation. My dear king, all the women present, considering the match and unfair fight between the strong and the weak, felt extreme anxiety due to compassion. They assembled in groups around the arena and spoke to one another as follows. Verse 7. Mahan ayam bata dharma Esham raja sabha sadam Ye bala balavat yuddham Rajno anvichanti pashyata Mahanayam bata dharma Esham rajasabha sadam Ye bala balavat yuddham Rajno anvichanti pashyata Mahanayam bata dharma Esham Rajyasabha Sadam Ye Bala Balavat Yajno Anvichanti Pashyata Mahayam Bata Dharma Isham Rajasabha Sadam Balavat Agnoshanti Pashyata Mahayam Bata Dharma Shamyadagram He Balavadam Yut Rachano Avichanti Pashyata Mahanyayam Batadharma Isham Rajasabha Sadam Ye Bala Balavatam Yagno Avichanti Pashat Amayam Batadharma Sham Rajasabha Sadam Ye Bala Balavadam Yagya Vichanti Pashat. Word for word meaning. Mahan, great. I am this, bata, alas, a dharma, act of irreligion. Isham, on the part of these. Rajya Sabha, in the king's assembly. Sadam, persons present. Ye, who. Bala abalavat, between strong and weak. Yuddham, a fight. Rajna, while the king. Anvichanti, they also desire. Pasyata is watching. Translation and purport by disciples of Srila Prabhupada. The women said, the women said, alas, what a greatly irreligious act the members of this royal assembly are committing. As the king watches this fight between the strong and the weak, they also want to see it. Please repeat. The women said, alas, what a greatly irreligious act the members of this royal assembly are committing. As the king watches this fight between the strong and the weak, they also want to see it. Purport. The idea the ladies are expressing is that even if the king somehow wanted to see such an unfair match, why should the respectable members of the assembly also desire to see it? These feelings are natural. Even nowadays, if in a public place we find a violent fight going on between a very strong, large person and a weaker, smaller person, we are aroused to indignation. Compassionate women are especially offended and enraged by such an unfair violence. Om Jnana Trimandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmitam Lena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Manchakalpatarupascha Kripa Sindhu Pevacha Patitanam Vaishnaveyo Vaishnaveyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pachanini Nirvisheshwadi Paschati Desadarini. Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pishtaya Bhutale Srimati Gopal Krishna Swami Iti Namine. Prabhupada Sasatam Prakasa Patrasa Chapacham Prabhupada. So the translation of the two verses. My dear king, all the women present, considering the match an unfair fight between the strong and the weak, felt extreme anxiety due to compassion. They assembled in groups around the arena and spoke to one another as follows. Then the women said, Alas, what a greatly religious act the members of this royal assembly are committing. As the king watches the fight between the strong and the weak, they also want to see it. I'll just read a little bit from the commentaries of the Goswamis. So the women began to, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says, the women began to discuss about the unfairness of the match between the strong Chanura and Mushtika and weak Krishna and Balram. The reason was their compassion. This was a symptom of their natural affection for Krishna. Because of that, they did not recollect Krishna and Balram's superior strength. Then Sanatana Goswami said that the words having seen this should be added, or they speak this way about him without knowing about him as residents of Mathura. They were full of affection by their nature and spoke without examining the issues closely. And Sukhdev Goswami calls to Parikshit, you as a king understand this. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says the discussion of the women is described in 10 verses. If the king sees a fight between young boys and strong adults, he should stop it. When the spectators see the king is watching, they follow suit and simply watch. The king desires to watch and they imitate him. Jiva Goswami says 10 verses describe what they said. Since it was the king's assembly, it should have been able to discern dharma. The others desire to see this since the king watches. Pata indicates lamentation. So Sukhdev Goswami talks about the unfair fight between the strong and the weak. And the women who were present, they felt extreme anxiety due to compassion. Even though they were from Mathura and they didn't completely know Krishna, they took one look at Krishna and their natural love for Krishna manifested. And it manifested in the form of compassion when they saw this imbalance in the fight. They were in anxiety for the welfare of these two young boys who they felt were maybe weak and not be able to handle these mighty warriors. And and may get squashed by these Mustika and Chanura. And then anxiety that is arisen in their hearts is for the welfare of Krishna and Balram. In fact, yesterday we were reading from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, where there's a shloka by Rupa Goswami where he says, when Devaki saw her son Krishna, dearer than billions of her lives, being attacked by the wrestlers, her eyes became dry and she became paralyzed. Now, there are two things on this. Of course, when Devaki saw Krishna, she's immediately in anxiety like these other ladies, and she becomes paralyzed from that anxiety. But then there is also a little bit of a contradiction, because when we go further in Srimad Bhagavatam, we see that after Krishna kills Kansa, he goes to see his mother Devaki. So we assume that Mother Devaki is not in the arena at this time. But our acharyas talk about different pastimes of Krishna having slightly different events take place differently. So according to Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, did I say Brihad? I did say it. Yeah, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So says that Devaki was in the arena and she went into great anxiety and became paralyzed. So we see these kind of things a lot of times in different descriptions by different Goswamis. So that was kind of an interesting side that we saw yesterday, and I thought I'll share that. There are two things in here that I saw when I am reading these. One was the exploitation of the weaker. It was the strong essentially beating up on the weak. And the compassion that such an action manifests in the hearts of the righteous. And then the fact that the associates of Kansa were irreligious. And being irreligious, they blindly followed Kansa when Kansa wanted to watch this kind of a pastime, a wrestling match between his strong Mushtika and Chanura and apparently weak Krishna and Balaram. Nobody recognized in that arena the fact that these were not poor little weak boys, but there's a pastime here, and that's what we see. I'll start by reading a little bit from Krishna book, just so that we get what Prabhupada said about it. So right after the wrestling match started, Prabhupada said, but the audience in the wrestling arena are not very much satisfied because the combatants did not appear to be equally matched. They considered Krishna and Balram to be mere boys before Chanura and Mushtika, who were the strongest wrestlers, as solid as stone. Being compassionate and favoring Krishna and Balram, the many ladies in the audience began to talk as follows. Dear friends, there is injustice here. Another said, even in front of the king, this wrestling is going on between incompatible sides. This is where they're thinking that the king, who's supposed to be righteous and follow dharma, should have stopped this. The ladies had lost their sense of enjoyment. They could not encourage the fighting between the strong and the weak. Mushtika and Chanura are just like thunderbolts, as strong as great mountains, and Krishna and Balaram are two delicate boys of very tender age. The principle of justice has already left the society. Persons who are aware of the civilized principles of justice will not remain to watch this unfair match. Those taking part in watching this wrestling match are not very enlightened. Therefore, whether they remains whether they speak or remain silent, they are being subjected to reactions of sinful activity. And so they are being subjected to the reactions of these irreligious behavior, which is the Prabhupada in Krishna book is calling sinful activities. So irreligious activities are sinful activities. Now, we use these words all the time. Religious, irreligious, in Sanskrit, dharma and adharma. And the principles of religion and against the principles of religion. So what is that? In the dictionary says that the principle is a general belief that you have about the way you should behave, which influences your behavior. And the dictionary also says you use religious to describe things that are connected with religion or with a particular religion. In our society, religions are like Hindu, Christian, Jewish, Mohammedan, Buddhist, so on and so forth. And Prabhupada in his books has translated religion or dharma as religion. However, he explains that it really does not mean religion as in the traditional sense. Dharma is Sanatan Dharma, which is eternal, universal religion. Religion, Prabhupada said, depends on faith, and faith can vary. It changes. However, the way he's translated dharma into religion, it is fixed. It never changes. It's eternal. And it is our inherent position. And irreligion, of course, by definition, would be a dharma, which means everything that is against dharma, everything that is against our constitutional position. So these kings, having been in the association of somebody who is full of adharma, somebody who has killed the children of his sister, somebody who's cruel to everyone, somebody who's been chasing Krishna by sending his demons, trying to kill Krishna. So he is full of adharma, and his associates to stay in his good books are also full of adharma. By nature, by being in association, you become what you associate with. So these associates are also adharmi, which is following irreligion, and they are not, they cannot see the irreligion in what's going on here, where strong is beating up on the weak. We and here in this verse they're saying, it said that they're just following the king. Whether or not they believe the king, we don't know, because we don't know who all is in the public here. But we know that they're just following whatever the king is doing, because they think that their benefit is in following the king. Just like we see in the present day, you just have to turn on the TV or the news to see how such a huge population of the United States is following the so-called king, the president, the ex-president. They're blindly following him, doing what he does, believing what he believes. And what that has resulted in is in adharma, in irreligion, in racism, in exploitation of the weak, association with, people of bad character, liars, cheaters, and that behavior in our society or in certain parts of our society has become quite normalized. And that is because of continuous irreligion, even in people following so-called religion. So it's really important to understand what dharma is and how it would result in compassionate behavior or the right behavior. For that, I would like to read a couple of passages by Prabhupada where he talks about irreligion. And he says in a lecture at the University of Detroit on Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, second chapter, 9th verse, Prabhupada said, the difference is that a human being, civilized being, has some sort of religious understanding. The cats and dogs have no such things. Well, let's start out here. It says, when human beings become irreligious without any religion, there is no better than, then it is no better than the cats and dogs. The difference is that a human being, civilized being, has some sort of religious understanding. The cats and dogs have no such thing. That is the difference. Therefore, when a human being becomes irreligious without any religion, then it is no better than cats and dogs. Dharmena hina ashubhi samana. Dharma generally is understood as religion. Religion means a kind of faith. So that is not the proper meaning of dharma, faith. Faith one may have, one may not have. But actually, dharma means compulsory. It must be, just like sugar. Sugar must be sweet. There is no question of sometimes becoming sweet and sometimes becoming bitter. That is not sugar. Sugar must be sweet. Similarly, dharma also dharma is also a must be. It cannot be option or a kind of faith which you can change at your whim. That is not dharma. Dharma means must be. The same example. A particular thing has a particular characteristic. The sugar characteristic is sweetness. Chili is hot. Similarly, everything has got its characteristics. Just like microphone. I'm speaking, it must resound. That is the characteristic. That is dharma, which cannot be separated. If sweetness is separated from sugar, it is no longer sugar. Similarly, dharma means that. Dharma means real meaning is characteristic. The characteristic of the living being is to serve. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave this instruction. Jive Rasoya Pai Nitya Krishna Das. CC Madhya Leela, chapter 2108.109. That is the characteristic of all living entities, to become servant, to become a servant of Krishna. But when we do not serve Krishna, then because of constitutional position, because my constitutional position is to serve, I have to serve Maya. If you don't serve Krishna, then you will have to serve Maya because you have no other business other than to serve, just like a servant class. If he gives up one master, he must accept another master. Maybe better master, but master he has to accept, just like dog. Without accepting a master, it is street dog. It has no position, no dharma. So dharma means that the characteristic of the living being. So these other people in the arena, the followers of Kansa, they're just like dogs following the master who's Kansa. Prabhupada continues. So here it says, Dharmasya hi apavargasya na artha artha yopakalpati. There are four principles in the material world: dharma, arth, kama, moksha. You can find that in Srimad Bhagavatam 4:841 and Adi Leela 190. Human life begins from religious life because in the animal life there is no religion. Animal life, cat's life, dog's life, tiger's life, or any other less than human being, especially civilized human beings all over the world, there is some type of religion. Either it may be Hindu religion or Christian religion or Mohammedan religion or Buddhist religion or Jewish. That is the sign of civilized human society. Dharmena hina pashupu samana. Ahar nidra bhaya maithunya cha. Samanya etat pashupim narana. Hitopshisha 25. Eating, sleeping, sex, life, and defense. They are common either in the human being or to the animal. So what is the difference between animal and human being? The difference is that human being, civilized being, has some sort of religious understanding. The cats and dogs, they have no such thing. That is the difference. Therefore, when human being becomes irreligious without any religion, then it is no better than the cats and dogs. In another place, Prabhupada says, when people, when people become irreligious, not abiding by the law of God, then it becomes burdensome. How one can say that to gut throat is my religion? Nobody can say like that. That is not religion. That means he has no sense of God consciousness. So, Prabhupada says that when the citizens of the world are law-abiding, then the whole government becomes law-abiding. Or when the king is law-abiding, then the whole citizenry becomes law-abiding. And the real law, of course, is the law of God. And following that law of God is dharma. That is what religion is, because that is the unchanged way. And Prabhupada has talked about Sanatana Dharma, which is the eternal religion, and Varnashram Dharma, which is the nature by which we live in this material world. So when we follow the laws of the material world, we live in a Varnashram Dharma. And through following the Varnashram Dharma, we attain Sanatana Dharma. We become truly religious. And that is the purpose. And those people who have achieved Sanatana Dharma also become compassionate, and all of the various other qualities of a good Brahmana and Vaishnava manifest. Here we have Pansa's people who are irreligious and have no compassion. Then we have these ladies of Mathura who, just by seeing Krishna, their inherent love for God manifests and the compassion shows up. And that we can get, or we can see manifest in its entirety in Srila Prabhupada. He is the embodiment of the Dharma, which is ultimately to understand Krishna and develop love for Krishna. And he is the full embodiment of compassion. He did not discriminate, well, following the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, who did not discriminate in how they spread the holy name and love for Godhead. Prabhupada gave his compassion to each and every one of us and gave us the path to understand Dharma and understand Krishna and love for Krishna. So we just need to keep on doing what Prabhupada has asked us to do. Chant, chant, and chant. And with that, I would like to open up for any. I think we got 1 minute. What do we got? I think we need to just adopt Dharma as a word in English, just the way Prabhupada is defined. Mother Rudrani is saying that there is no real connection between religion and Dharma. But Prabhupada has explained, because that was the only word in English that he could come up with. So we need to have that integrity. Yeah. I guess in the fundamental they do join, which is every religion has love for God as the ultimate. Totally. Thank you. Shrimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Golokananda ki jai. Go Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol.
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Enam Kanvanda Maravindanalaya Tatam Bhagavatam Shamasitam Buddha Sundaratam Kandar Bhakto Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobha Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Andaniya Sakale Priya Pritimanti Vasyanti Vikayanti Giram Prakanti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrasya Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami 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 Govindam Tamaham Bhajami Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Tamaham Bhajami
Yasomati Nanda Ranjanakana Yasomati Nandana Brajaparanagara Gokula Ranjanakana Yasomati Nandana Brajaparanagara Gokula Ranjanakana Gopi Paranadana Madana Manohara Gopi Paranadana Madana Manohara Gopi Paranadana Madana Manohara Gopi Paranadana Madana Manohara Kaliya Damana Vidana Kaliya Damana Anam Kaliya Damana Didana Kaliya Damana Didana Amala Harina Mami Avilasa Amala Harina Mami Avilasa Amala Harina Mami Avilasa Nasa Vipinam Purandara Navina Nagaraboro Vamsi Vedana Suvasa Vipinam Purandara Navina Nagaraboro Vamsi Vedana Suvasa Vipinam Purandara Navina Nagaraboro Vamsi Vedana Suvasa Innapuram Bara Vamsi Vedana Brajajana Palana Surakula Nashana Jajana Palana Surakula Nashana Rajana Palana Surakula Nashana Rajana Palana Surakula Nashana Nanda Godana Rakulaya Nanda Godana Rakulaya Nanda Godana Rakulaya Nanda Godana Rakulaya Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Govinda Madhava Nita Taskara Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Govinda Navanita Taskara Sundarananda Gopala Sundarananda Gopala Sundarananda Gopala Yamuna Tatachara Gopi Vasana Hara Rasara Sukha Kripa Moya Nuna Tatachara Gopi Vasana Hara Rasara Sukha Kripa Moya Yamuna Tatachara Gopi Vasana Hara Rasara Sika Kripa Moya Yamuna Tatachara Gopi Vasana Hara Rasara Sika Kripa Moya Sri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natabara Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natabara Sri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natabara Radha Vrindavana Natabara Bhakati Vinodashraya Bhakati Vinodashraya Bhakati Vinodashraya Bhakati Vinodashraya Yasamati Nandana Brajabaranagara Gokula Ranjana Kana Yasamati Nandana Brajabaranagara Gokula Ranjana Kana Amala Harina Mami Avilasa Amala Harina Mami Amala Harina Mami Avilasa Amala Harina Avilasa Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Sri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natabara Sri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natabara Bhakati Vinodashraya Bhakati Vinodashraya Bhakati Vinodashraya. Bhakti Vinodashraya. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Radha Golokananda, Radha Golokananda, Radhe, Radha Golokananda, Radha Golokananda, Radha. Jaya Radha Golokananda, Radha Golokananda, Radhe. Jaya Radha Golokananda, Radha. The Ram, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Shri Gaura ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Golokananda ki jai. Lord Krishna is beloved son of Yashoda, transcendental lover in the land of Braj, the delight of Gokula, known by the nickname Kana, the wealth of the lives of the gopis, the attractor of Cupid, and punisher of the serpent Kalia. These pure holy names of Lord Hari are full of sweet nectarian pastimes, Lord of the 12 forests of Braj, ever youthful, the best of lovers, player of the flute, an excellent dresser, protector of the inhabitants of Braja, destroyer of the demonic dynasties, keeper and tender of Nanda's cows, giver of pleasure to cows, land, and spiritual senses, husband of the goddess of fortune, butter thief, and beautiful little cowherd boy of Nanda Maharaj, wanderer of the Yamuna river banks, thief of the garments of the gopis, enjoyer of the mellows of the rasa dance, very merciful, lover and beloved of Sri Radha, the great dancer of Vrindavan, and the only shelter of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. One quick note before we chant Shastakam. We're having Harinam this week on Friday between 11:30 and 1 in Hillsborough at Weaver Street, because the weather's going to be good on Friday and it isn't going to be good on Saturday. So please come on Friday. Chaito Darpana Marjanam Baba Mahadavagni Navanam Shreya Chandrika Vitaranam Vijavadu Jivanam Anandam Bodhivardhanam Pajam Pranarita Swadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrapita Niyamita Smaranena Kala Etad Rishita Vakripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midrishami Hajjaninanu Tranada Pi Sunichena Tarora Pi Suhishuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam va Jagadisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmani Ishvare Bhavatad Bhaktir Awaitaki Twai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitamam Vishame Bhavam Buddha Kripayatava Pada Pankaja Stita Duli Sajashim Vachintaya Nayanam Galashu Daraya Vadanam Gadgada Redaya Gira Pulakarnishitam Vapukada Tavanamagrahane Bhavishyati Yugayatam namishena chakshusha pravashayatam Shrunayatam jagat sarvam govindam virahename Sumam adarshanam marmahata karotuva Yatatata vavindatolam padomat prananatastusa eva napara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than a straw on the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. Oh, my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body 12 years or more? Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me brokenhearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditional.